The only time success comes before work is in the dictionary. Good evening. Welcome to this little live Q&A for High Performance, the podcast that has taken people by storm in 2020, and it seems to be doing the same in 2021. With me, as always, Professor Damian Hughes. Evening, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, mate. How are you? You all right?
Very well. Have you got the obligatory cup of tea there?
Always have.
Love it. Already people are getting in touch with their questions. Thanks very much, whether you're joining us on Instagram this evening, on YouTube, on Twitter. Please get involved and ask questions. Creative Waffle says, very excited for this. The podcast has been a huge help throughout lockdown. Gio says they're buzzing for this. Evening, Sam. Duncan wants us to get Tiger Woods on the podcast. Jamie says he loves the podcast as well. So, Damian, let's get straight on with it then. Tonight we're talking about Embrace the Grind. It was only this morning that my wife and I were sitting in bed with a cup of tea and we were looking at the news and it was saying, it looks like schools might be closed until Easter. We're homeschooling 2 kids and I'm presenting football games like there's no tomorrow. And we both were like, and actually, let's get ready to embrace the grind was what I said to Harriet. So why is it so important for people who've listened to the pod, people who are joining us live right now? Why is embrace the grind so vital?
It's a really good question, Jake. And I think it's one of those things that when we listen to our high performance guests, that we're often interested in the outcomes, the success, the trophies, the victories and things like that. And I think what every one of them has emphasised to us, whether that's been privately or on the interviews, has been the importance of hard work, the dedication, just the consistency of doing the same thing over and over again as high as they can. And I think that often gets missed out when we talk about outcomes. We forget the incomes, the stuff that we need to be doing day after day. And that's why I thought, we're still in lockdown. We don't know when that's going to end. It's cold. It's dark outside. The nights are running on until they're late. We had this supposed Blue Monday effect the other day, the most depressing day of the year. And I think sometimes it's a message that we all need to hear. Sometimes you just got to get your head down and get on with it.
Love it. Is that your phone buzzing on the desk?
No.
Thought I could hear a phone ringing. I tell you what, right? Let's I don't know what it is. Let's get straight into a clip then, because we've got a couple of people that we want you to hear from. These interviews will be available on YouTube. The Phil Neville one, you're going to hear from Phil, is already on YouTube. The Eddie Jones, the England rugby manager, is not on there yet because he hasn't yet appeared. He appears on the next series of the podcast. So talking of embracing the grind, here's both Phil Neville and Eddie Jones. Have a listen.
So what would you say would be the ingredients of a perfect game then for a team? So if you could instill characteristics in that team, what would they be doing that would deliver that outcome?
I have to love the grind, mate. Because, all the good things in sport are hard work. There's nothing in sport that comes easily. So the ability of the best players, and I think it goes to coaches too, the ability of the best players and the best coaches is to keep doing it and don't get bored by it. Don't take any shortcuts, be insistent on standards, keep those standards high, never drop off. And that separates the really great players from the good players and the good players from the average players. Their ability to absorb that grind, because everyone thinks sport's fun and fantastic, and it is when you watch it. But the actual process of putting that into place is hard work.
Sir Alex did want to change the culture, and he did. Like, the academy had changed, that work ethic was there, but obviously we were young players. But he had to change the culture in his first team, and Cantona was almost like, here, this is what the top players do. And we at United, we had the best players. Ince, Keane were there, but this is what the best players do. And people talk to me about Cantona. What did he used to do? He used to get a ball, get a wall and just kick a ball against the wall, left foot, right foot, control it with the outside of his foot, drag it to his right, play it with his left. It was just like simple drills that made him so good on a Saturday. Somebody would cross a ball into the box and he would hit volley after volley, but it was just simple. Do you remember the goal that Scholes scored against Bradford?
Oh yeah,
Beckham drive, Scholes volley. Now that was as simple as, after every training session, somebody on the left wing just pinging a ball into an area where the D was, and him just lashing a ball 10, 15, 20 times. It wasn't like you think individual bits of brilliant coaching, training. No, it was just repetition of simplicity.
Great stuff. Eddie Jones there and Phil Neville. By the way, congratulations, Phil. Got himself a nice, shiny new job. The manager of Inter Miami. Hopefully we're getting invited to go and chat in the sun. But
did you read the quote about Phil this week, actually?
No, go on.
Did you? It was interesting that he quoted some of the stuff from our interview in his opening press conference with Miami. So we call it non-negotiable behaviours. Phil said, in terms of what I want to build here, I want to create behaviours that I'm going to call elite behaviours. It's about doing the right thing every minute of every day. I've lived that as a player, and I've seen him coach that way with some of the best players in the men and the women's game.
See, what I like about that is that I don't want people to think that hard work and graft is like a one-time thing. It isn't, is it? We're talking here about constant, relentless behaviours. But the nice thing about them, Damian, is that they're universal. I think that anyone can apply hard work to the life they live in. And from my own sort of personal experiences, what I love about the graft and the hard work and the grind is that when you're successful, you feel like you have a real ownership of that success. When you fail, and we all do that a lot of the time, you feel like, well, listen, I know I gave it my everything. So it's almost like, for me, it's almost like hard work is the answer to sort of happiness in my own head. Do you know what I mean? Because it doesn't matter which way things go. The hard work means everything's kind of all right.
Yeah, and it just and you hear people, like I hear lots of coaches say we want a no excuses culture, whether that's in their team or you hear bosses say that in the workplace about we don't want anyone to have any excuses for not failing. But like you say, hard work is almost like the basic standard to say, well, you remove excuses by giving your absolute everything, leaving nothing on the table. You know, you use the resources you've got, the time you're in, and then you actually make the best of it with the ultimate effort.
No, I remember actually when I worked in Formula One, Jenson Button was someone that wanted to be the fittest driver on the grid, because when he was sitting there with like 19 other cars, it made him really pleased that he knew he was the fittest guy there. And then I remember working with John Motson at I think it was in Vienna in 2008. Yeah. And I think it was his last major commentary in a big major final. And I had a drink with him in the bar a couple of nights before, which turned into about 20 drinks. But he showed me his notes and we spoke about what he was doing in his preparation for that final. And it was unbelievable. It was like he was putting as much effort in now to the work that he was doing as 25, 30 years ago. There was no change in the effort or the discipline or the hard work. And that's why John Motson got to the top and then stayed at the top.
Yeah.
There's no secret.
Yeah, I remember years ago in a similar example of it, I was doing some work with the England Rugby League team, and I got very friendly with the captain of the team was Jamie Peacock, who's become like a bit of an icon of the sport. I remember him telling me that he would divide every decision he ever made up into hard versus easy. Right. So the example he'd say is during pre-season when he'd go out for a run, like the run was non-negotiable. He was going to work hard at the run. But then he'd decide whether, if you listen to an iPod, that was an easy decision. The hard decision would be to run without any music, so that he had to hear the sound of his own breathing and cope with his own thought processes. And he felt that you do that enough times, you build up that strength of character, that working hard just becomes a part of who you are. It doesn't become something that you do every now and again.
And I still think that there is a school of thought that it just happens for successful people. They just manage to get success. You know, that people don't see, probably because people don't see the grind. They assume the grind isn't happening. I wanted to bring just a few examples, right? Vincent van Gogh, all of the artwork that exists of his was created between 1881 and 1890. That's a 9-year period. In that time, he produced 900 pieces of art. That's 2 a week, every single week. Edison had 10,000 attempts to create the light bulb and failed every time, but still kept on going. My favourite one, Picasso. Over his lifetime, he produced 50,000 bits of artwork, whether that's sketches or paintings or whatever, which is the equivalent of the week he was born till the week he died, which obviously he wasn't doing, 10 paintings, drawings, sketches, 10 bits of art every single week for his entire life. And the point of that is that it's about the relentlessness, it's about the consistency. And there'll be people that are watching this evening that are thinking, I haven't got what I want. I don't know how I can improve things. I'm doing everything I can. And I think sometimes it's not about working harder necessarily. It's about finding that consistency and making sure that whether you're in a good period or a bad period, and so many people on the pod have spoken about this to us, haven't they? That the hard work remains consistent, and it can be difficult. So, but a good example in our family at the moment, we're doing homeschooling and I'm working a lot. So I'm now getting up at 5 so I can get that hard work and that graft in before the kids wake up, before my phone starts to ping. And that means that the sort of level stays the same,
Yeah, I mean, there's that lovely apocryphal story, isn't there, about Picasso, where a lady's supposed to have bumped into him in the marketplace and asked him to draw a picture, and he's done it. And he's then said, there you go, that'll be worth £1 million. He said, but it only took you 30 seconds. And he went, no, but it took me 30 years to be able to do it in 30 seconds. And like you say, I think we often get blinded by the outcome stuff, as we said at the start. And I think it's the work in the shadows. There's that famous Muhammad Ali quote that said, like, to be able to dance under the ring, under the bright lights of the ring, you've got to be able to do the hard yards in the dark on the road when nobody's watching. And it's almost that idea that I think if you can shine a light on that hard work bit and get people to understand that there's no such thing as an easy success. It has to come through that passion for loving doing the same thing over and over again, that consistency.
Listen, get your questions into us. The box gathering has dropped them in there without sounding like a ball. He says, I've never liked the term the grind. It suggests that learning and progress isn't enjoyable, but an inevitable trudging stumble forward. It's an interesting one, that, because it's true. When you talk about the grind, it's like, the grind and the graft. Should it be called the grind? Should it be called the embrace or something?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I'm a big one on semantics, so I accept the point that if it's about the association of it. The reason I thought we chose that phrase is because when Eddie Jones pronounced it to us about, you've got to love the grind, mate, it was said with a real relish and a passion. So I think for him, it was obviously just loving doing the same thing over and over again, which is why so I suppose it's association. But again, I often say to people, if you can make up your own terms rather than copy somebody else's, if you think it's about the journey, if it's about doing the right thing over and over again, the consistency, it almost doesn't matter. We're talking about the same thing.
There was something else that Eddie said, which I think is interesting. And obviously the podcast isn't out yet. I think, well, we might as well tell people what our plan is. So episode 1 of the new series, which starts on the 1st of February, is going to be Kasper Schmeichel, yeah?
Yeah.
And then the following week, we're going to have bonus episodes dropping on a Wednesday as well, by the way. So it's Monday and then a bonus episode on a Friday and pod out on a Monday, bonus episode Wednesday, short episode on a Friday. So there's going to be loads of content coming to you from the High Performance Podcast for this series. So it's Kasper, then Josh Warrington, isn't it?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough. I caught up with Josh this week. I went to his gym where he's preparing for he's got his world title fight on the 13th of February. So again, talking about hard work, he was well in the midst of his preparation and his effort. You know, one thing I'm sure Josh won't mind me talking about this. We spoke about having a plan B. It's that great Mike Tyson quote that everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. So some of the stuff we were talking about was his preparation and the preparation of fight week, because for him it's unusual. He's not boxed for 15 months and he's going to have to go into a bubble, which he's never done before, for a week beforehand. So I was lucky enough to catch up with Josh and go through some of his preparation for this. But I'm confident people will really enjoy both those first interviews, Kasper, but Josh has got an amazing story to tell.
It's great. And then Eddie Jones will appear as well. There's some lovely questions coming in. Keep them coming, actually. Pierre says the hustle is a common one, which is maybe better than grind, actually. Ryan says the interviews with Kelly Holmes and Michelle Mone stand out for embracing the grind. Which interviews have taken you close to having a lump in the throat, if any? Oh, that's a good question, actually. Which ones have you been? I remember being close to tears in one of our interviews that we did.
Yeah, I'll throw Sia in on that one, Sia Khaleesi, because I think it was just so humbling to hear about the real crushing, numbing, abject poverty that he'd grown up in, and the story about his grandma dying in his arms when he was 8 years of age. You know, I'd defy anyone with a pulse not to have had a lump in the throat for that one.
I tell you, for me, it was Nims Purger, and we're going to hear from Nims in just a second. Obviously, he's just climbed K2 in the winter. Did he do it? I think he did it without oxygen as well, didn't he?
I know, yeah. First guy ever to climb it with.
What I loved about when we were speaking to him was that point where he said, "Look, I am a guy from a tiny village in Nepal with nothing and no money and no dreams and no way out. Yet I created everything that I've ever had." And that for me I found that hugely moving because it summed up everything that this podcast is about. You know, us just wanting people to understand that where they are now and where they can be are two totally different things, and it is down to them 100% responsibility.
I mean, this was a guy like Nims's example was where he was putting weights in his shoes so he could go out running and make sure he passed the SBS endurance. This is a guy that so to go back to that point from earlier, this was a guy that loved the hard work. He got, he was doing that completely voluntarily.
Dipesh Joshi says, after a chat with Jake and Damian, I remember Dipesh got in touch on Instagram actually. My own non-negotiables and shared with my own team. We accept that change doesn't happen overnight, but our standards are set and we've seen big improvements. Love it.
Well done, Dipesh.
Yeah, well done. Prime Pant said Josh Warrington, superb. That boy can scrap. He battered Frampton. Funnily enough, Carl Frampton will be on the next series.
He was great as well, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he was really good. There's another question I wanted. Oh yeah, great question, brilliant question from Ricky. What checkpoints would you suggest while on the grind, or what else are we're gonna have another name for it, aren't we? Rather than hustling. What are the checkpoints while you're hustling?
I think that's a brilliant question, Ricky, and I think some of it is just to check in with yourself and make sure you're enjoying it. I mean, and again, I'm not betraying anything that. In my conversation with Josh this week, I asked him a very similar question to that because his work ethic is unsurpassed, but he's also in a very dangerous business where you can get hurt. And he was saying the day that he doesn't look forward to going in when it's a hard session, the day that he starts to dread it, is his own internal checkpoint that he'll start to question whether he needs to get out. And at the moment, he absolutely gets excited about going in and punishing himself. So I think a really simple one is just make sure you're enjoying it and look for moments where you can get your head out the sand and not see it as like that. Again, going back to the semantics, not seeing it as hard work, but seeing it like taking pleasure out of the routine and the process.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I've often said that I think the reason why people who are successful, who are relentless, Damian, and constantly embrace the grind or chase what's ahead of them, is because they have the passion for it. And I think I honestly think that if we were involved in something like, let's take this podcast as a good example. Often when I do my power hour at 5 a.m, I'm thinking about the pod and the plans. And, we may as well tell people we've got a plan to do a sort of a high performance festival this year, obviously over social rather than in person. But I think if I didn't have a real passion for this, I'd find it really bloody difficult to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and think about it, or the production company or the TV work and things. And so I think it's really important to make sure you're totally right, to make sure passion is at the absolute core of what you're doing. Otherwise it's hard, isn't it?
And then listen to the language when you're making excuses for not following the process. I think that's another checkpoint that says, like Nims had that great point, didn't he? That he said, the moment you make excuses, you've lost the game. You're not climbing the mountain. So I think listen to your own language, your own internal dialogue for this, as well as enjoying it. Make sure that you're not finding excuses or back doors that you can escape from. Yeah.
Nice as well from the box gathering, who's busy in the comments tonight. So thanks for that. Love it. Check-in points, stretch and support. Use them like graphic equalizers. Stretch them when you need pushing and support when required. A good coach knows when the relationships formed, which is lovely. Jade wants to know, has anyone changed our perception of them after speaking with them so personally? Yes, pretty much everyone. I tell you, for me, it was Eddie Hearn, because like everyone else, I saw Eddie Hearn, the promoter, in the ring with his boxers, with the swagger, walking around. When we really, I'll tell you all a secret, right? So Damian and I start these interviews on the High Performance Podcast, and of course, we have the questions that we want to discuss with them. And I've always believed if you have to use those questions, it's not great, because it needs to be a natural conversation. So those questions are really only there as a backup, and hopefully the two of us will find another way through. What we've noticed, and I'm sure you'll back me up on this, Damian, for the first 20 minutes, we get like the stuff that they deliver in every interview and the answers they always give that they know are safe and they don't cause any newspaper headlines that don't offend any colleagues or whatever. And then after about 20 minutes, when you sort of earn their trust and they've relaxed a little bit, you start getting the truth coming out. And I felt with Eddie that at the beginning, it was like, here I am, Eddie Hearn, love it, great. And then when we broke him down properly, of course, it became about hard work, but it also became about that burning energy he gets from the fact that his dad created the business. He didn't create the business. And he feels, I think, a massive sense of responsibility to hand it on to the next generation in a better shape than it was given to him by his dad. And I thought Casper as well, which you'll hear on the next series, was really kind of quite vulnerable. I mean, he revealed to us the way he's believed, didn't he, that he would win the Premier League.
Yeah, that was a really good story.
When he was playing in League Two, and it happened.
Yeah, I think the one for me, and I knew a little bit about him, but I'll explain why. It was Phil Neville. So I think a lot of people see Phil, and when you've seen him on like TV, and you appreciate this better than I do, Jake, about there's time pressures in terms of making a point, and I think that sometimes Phil can be a little bit clumsy in his phraseology. So we might I remember hearing him once say that don't put all your eggs in the same hat rather than basket. So I think people seize on that and then go that and then make some snide comment about him. And I think when Phil came along, I think what helped change perceptions is there was no time pressure and we gave him space to answer it. And I think how intelligent, smart, incisive he is was really pleasing, that it got to change others' perceptions of him. And from feedback I've heard, I think it was that. And I think there was that lovely bit where he spoke about how women's sport still wasn't as respected as men's sport. And he'd only understood it by working within that world and seeing how the sort of conditions and the disrespect. So I think Phil's had a number of things. I think it helped change my perception, the perception of listeners, but also the perception of women's sport and where it often, because since Phil raised it, I often notice where it's relegated in the comments or it's often not mentioned or disrespectful. So I think it had a number of ways of changing perceptions.
Yeah. The box gathering says Kelly Jones from the Stereophonics is their fave. It seemed icy, but came across really quite vulnerable. DRD1, changed perceptions, Sean Dyche and Dylan Hartley. I had a negative opinion of both, but gained a newfound respect for both of them after listening to the podcast. And we should say well done, Jamie Buer, for his honesty. Being a Celtic fan, I shouldn't, but really enjoyed Gerrard's passion. What a job he's doing. What a job he's doing up there. Duncan W.G. McPherson. Hi, Jake and Damian. What is the best investment you've ever made? Good question. Personal relationships. I talk about this loads to people. I talk about it with my kids all the time. When I first got into TV, right, Damian, I thought it was really exciting. So anytime anyone asked me, oh, could you come to this or could you do this? I'd say, yeah, speak to my agent. And it was actually David Coulthard who, when I met him, he said to me, son, personal relationships, get to know people personally, get to understand their lives, their families. And then 12 or 13 years later, we create this podcast and we have Sia Kolisi saying, understanding his teammates makes him a better player. Steven Gerrard saying understanding his players makes him a better football manager. Nims Purger saying understanding the soldiers or the climbers he's with makes him better. You realise that personal relationships, oh my goodness, they're almost like the very centre of everything.
Yeah, definitely. I like David Coulthard. I'd love to get him on. I know a few times you've mentioned some of his advice, and I think he's a wise man. I think reading. I think I always felt that even when I was growing up, books were just windows to worlds that I couldn't even imagine at that stage. And the ability, like, I remember my dad saying to me that, like, all these people that have done amazing things have gone to the trouble of writing down their lessons and sharing them. And the least you can do is actually make the time to read them and try and understand them. So I think just having a really rich reading, extensive reading list, and just giving anything a go is probably the best investment in terms of being able to visit worlds that you couldn't even dream of and meet people that maybe you'd never meet.
And I like to think that that's basically what the High Performance Podcast is, isn't it? It's opening the door to the worlds of world champions, the best business leaders, the bravest, most exciting, hardworking people you could imagine, and learning the secrets, which nicely brings us on to sharing a couple more clips with you before we sign off for the night. This is Nims Purja, who just climbed K2 in the winter with his team. First person ever to do it in the winter, and also the first person without oxygen, and also Dina Asher-Smith. And what they're talking about is, of course, we've discussed the importance of the grind, the importance of hard work, of absolutely giving everything. Because if you work hard and you win, it's all yours. If you work hard and fail, you did your best. So we know that hard work is important. But without the dream and the belief and the ambition, where does the hard work really go? Have a listen.
Now, going into the mountain, as you said, like, hope is God. I'm not a really religious person. You know, I don't really believe in God. But then I keep saying, hope is God, because that's all what we have. Okay, as a human, if you imagine, let's say for my example, okay, if I'm in SBS, if I'm in a war or somewhere else, then when if the bullets flying around and when it hits the fan, and if you're not like hoping that you're gonna win this war, that's like you give up the battle already. And exactly when you're climbing in the mountain, sometimes, I was climbing at 75 kilometers per hour wind speed. It's so freezing cold. But then if you just give up your hope that you're going to come alive from these big mountains, you're going to die. Because, hope is what it keeps us motivated. Hope is what it keeps us alive, and that's what we have as a human.
Have you ever found yourself being intimidated, or has it ever sowed seeds of doubt in you?
Not particularly, no, because I think it's just, I'm going to use a phrase, but it's just believing in your own source, basically. Because, like, you can do all the bravado, you can kind of walk around, people sometimes try and play mind games with you. Like, they used to try that when I was a bit younger, but I think, like, I'm just always on my own little wavelength. No, but I don't mind. Like, I'm on my own little wavelength. I'm on my own little vibe. Like, that's it, really. Like,
but what mind games would they play with you? Like, what kind of things would they try to do?
I don't know. Some people, like, we all warm up in lanes on a warm-up track, and some people will warm up, like, in your lane, like, come running at you. But
don't come in my lane.
I'm one of those people that I kind of hold my lane, hold my space. If you want to run in my lane, it's fine. Like, I'll run straight through you. But I don't know. But that's what I mean. I don't mind. If you're going to come into my space, then I'm not going to give it up.
I love those. You know what, though? When I see the shots of the Dina Asher-Smith one, it just reminds me of the stress. I was in another room because I couldn't get Wi-Fi during lockdown number one. Oh, man. The stress of it. I think the key there is the Nims one in particular. There's two things, right, that he talks about there, which is having a dream, but also having the hope. And we've spoken tonight about hard work. Let's say that everyone decides that they're going to work really hard and they're going to hold on to their hope. Those are like the two things that will definitely get you there, because the hope will keep you going and the hard work will make you successful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's like that you can be a busy fool, but not moving yourself forward. And you can be working hard on the wrong thing. I think the hope bit says to you, do you know where you want to go to? You know where you're aiming for. And then the hard work has to keep moving you forward towards it. So in Nim's case, climbing K2 without oxygen, that's a very clear objective that he wants. But then the hard work of getting there and one foot in front of the other is a real difference.
And we've spoken so much on the pod about fault versus responsibility, taking responsibility for all the things in your life, whether they're your fault or not. And we both use the phrase, 100% responsibility. Taking responsibility for hard work and hope and self-belief. It's all there for you. It's totally universal. Anyone can have it. And I think that's a really good lesson from this evening. Lots of people asking when the new series is out. What's the date, Damian?
1st of February. So I said December then. Yeah. No, 1st of February. So we've had a 4-week break from it. We wanted to do these lockdown lives because we appreciate that people are having it tough at the moment. So just being able to plug into it is important. But the new series, like you revealed earlier, Jake, is with Casper Schmeichel. He kicks off this really, and we were just talking before we came on air. It's starting to look really, really good. The guests that we've already recorded for it, and I'm confident people will really enjoy it and get a lot from it.
Thank you to Jade, who says, I teach military recruits resilience and leadership skills and now get them to set 3 non-negotiable behaviours from the team at the start of the week. There you go. The high performance.
Thanks, Jade. Well, it was a nice story too, that I know that the Royal Marines are using the podcast with not only their recruits, but their like some of their more established soldiers. I've been lucky enough to go and visit a couple of their bases, and know that they're really passionate about the messages. So thank you, Jade. I'm delighted that it's helpful for you as well.
Amazing. Right, before we sign off, Damian, we always like to talk about books that we're reading at the moment.
Yeah.
We recommend. This week, I'm going to go for Alistair Campbell, Winners and How They Succeed, the #1 bestseller. I will have to just pop my glasses on at this point because I'm getting to that age. He talks in the book, there's a chapter about crisis management where he says, if leaders do not stay focused on the big picture, stay focused on the strategy, everyone else wanders off pretty quickly, which I like, man. I like the idea of being at the top of that pyramid and setting that. But I just want to read a bit from the end of the book, which I think is brilliant. Write these down if you fancy at home as we go through. Winners think big and bold. They are ambitious. Winners have a plan and where possible, stick to it, which is what we've spoken about all night. Winners pay attention to detail. They know it is in the implementation and constant iteration of planning that winning objectives can best be met. Winners never give up. They embrace pressure and they embrace setbacks. Winners turn disappointment into progress. They learn from mistakes. Winners always want to improve, and the desire to improve is what leads to innovation. Winners feel special. This is not universal, but I was struck by how many of the people I met acknowledged feeling from a young age they'd be more successful than others. Like the importance of self-talk right there. Winners focus on the next win, not the last one. Winners have the will to win and know it's not the same as wanting to win. Winners know the mental and physical are always connected. Winners care about their reputation and know that building it never stops. Winners respect experience, but not if someone keeps doing the wrong thing. Winners hate talent being wasted. Winners hate losing. Winners win because they have to.
There you go. You've got first to leave me to follow that now.
Oh, what a book. Alistair Campbell.
Amazing.
Winners.
Good, I like that.
Plans are afoot for Alistair to join us on the podcast.
Should be interesting. And the one I'm going to suggest is this one. This is by this lady called Edith Eger. This is her second book. The first one called The Choice. This one is called The Gift. Edith Eger, let me explain. She's at the age of 15, she found herself incarcerated as a prisoner in Auschwitz. Within 24 hours of arriving, her parents were both taken away and executed. She survived there and emigrated all to America. At the age of 40, she decided that she was going to stop being a victim. She was going to stop allowing that to define her life. She's now a clinical psychologist and a relationship counsellor. And she's written these 2 amazing books. And it's very much around always recognising how powerful choice is, that at any stage you can be a victim or you can be a conqueror. You can take responsibility or you can find fault, one of our big themes. And she just writes so beautifully about her experiences in the death camps, but equally how she takes those same principles from less extreme situations and applies them both as a parent and as a counsellor for other people going through struggles now. So again, I don't feel that we're betraying anything, that there's a possibility that she might be coming on a future series of the podcast. I mean, she's in her 90s now, but it's an incredible book. And if you just want to give yourself, if you're feeling sorry for yourself at any stage, give this a read. And I'm confident it'll just help reframe whatever challenge you're facing and get you to love the grind, love the hustle, whatever we want to call it. It's your opportunity to reframe it and see it as a choice that you're engaging in.
Brilliant. Really nice. Thanks, Damian. And look, at home, just remember that the self-belief, the plan, the passion, the hard work, the responsibility, not blaming others, you're in control. If you start tonight on a Sunday evening with the mindset that, that's for other people, I can't control all that stuff, then it won't happen. Just decide that, you know what, this week I'm going to believe that I'm in complete control and just see what happens. Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Really appreciate it. Damian, have a lovely week.
Yeah, you too, Jake. Thank you.
And 1st of February, High Performance Series 4. Get it in the diary. Thanks very much, as always, to Lotus being the brilliant founding partners of the High Performance Podcast. And thank you at home for all your support. It means the world to Damian and myself. So have a great week. Cheers, Damo.
Thanks, Jake. See you later. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.